Thank you. Well, for the purposes of this talk, I shall assume you don't know Wagner's Ring. If you do, that's absolutely fine, but I'll explain the parts that I need for comparison with the Eurozone crisis. As many of you know, the BBC has been promoting Wagner recently. They've had a lot of Wagner's music on. And the reason is that 2013 is the bicentenary of Wagner's birth, and he was born in late May. So it's sort of just very recent from that point of view. Wagner was the composer, a remarkable man, actually. He's the one who turned the lights off in opera houses. Before Wagner, when you watched an opera, the lights were all on in the house, and you could look at other people across the way, you know, watching the same thing, and then you could pay some attention, perhaps, to what's going on stage. But he changed all of that. And the philosopher Nietzsche, who was also a professor of classics, classical literature, felt he was a great fan of Wagner. He felt that Wagner was recreating Greek drama, which included, as some of you will know, music as well as music and movement as well as words. But anyway, let's move to the Ring. The story is this. Wotan, the king of the gods, has built a magnificent palace at Valhalla, a home for gods and heroes, rather like the EU. He got the giants to construct it by promising them the goddess of love as a payment for that. In the meantime, the dwarf Alberich, who lives beneath the earth, has renounced love and stolen the gold. He had to renounce love in order to do this. Stolen the gold from the river Rhine and created a ring of immense power. It's an artificial creation, rather like the euro. But let's carry on with the story. The giants come to demand payment from Wotan, and well, they take the goddess of love. Now, this is absolutely terrible, because the gods, without love, the gods will simply die, become lethargic, and just eventually cease to exist. So he has to do something. What he does is steal the gold and the ring that Alberich has beneath the earth. He takes it and gives it to the giants. The giants accept it as a ransom for the goddess of love, and one giant kills the other. There are two of them. One kills the other, and then simply sits on the gold and the ring as a dragon. He becomes a dragon. Now, of course, this business of how to pay for Valhalla is really involving a financial shenanigan, and Wotan's problem is to return the ring to the river Rhine, where it came from, while at the same time keeping Valhalla. So he devises a very deep-laid plan. He creates a free hero and a sword the hero can use to slay the dragon, and then return the ring to its rightful home. The hero that he creates and his twin sister are both children of Wotan by a mortal woman, and the deep-laid plan comes fully into effect when the two twins who were split apart as children come together again and escape from the sister's unloved husband, whom she was once compelled to marry. All has gone beautifully to plan, but Wotan's wife has persuaded him that there's a serious error here. The hero is not free because Wotan created him. Moreover, Wotan created the sword for him to use. So this allegedly free hero must be destroyed, and Wotan commands his divine daughter, Brunhilde, to do this. She disobeys. And Wotan condemns her to a fate worse than death, but she negotiates a way out of it, because she knows that the twin sister is now pregnant, and her son, who will be named Siegfried, will be the free hero who will find and marry her Brunhilde. Now, let's take a break from the Ring at this point, because Wagner, in fact, himself took a break. The Ring is 4 operas. They're long operas. And you can't blame the chap for stopping at some point and deciding to do something else. And he wrote 2 other great operas before he finally returned to the Ring. And for a comparison with the Euro, I'm comparing the Ring itself to the Euro. The sword that Wagner creates for the free hero, I'm comparing to the sword of democracy, and Wotan's spear, on which are engraved all his treaties, is a symbol of his power, and that I compare to the treaties of the Eurozone. Now, you may remember when George Papandreou of Greece waved the sword of democracy against the Eurozone, it was struck from his hand. But what happens if a greater power comes to wield the sword? What would this greater power be? Who would the Siegfried be? Well, you see, Siegfried is the son of the twins who were children of Wotan. The woman married to a man she didn't love, rather like East Germany married to the Soviet Union. And when these two come together, what do you have? Well, in the case of East and West Germany, you have, of course, a united Germany. So I would compare Siegfried to a united Germany. What if Germany wields the sword of democracy? What would happen then? So let's return to the Ring. Siegfried, the sword was broken by Wotan. Wotan sort of condemned the hero that he created to death, and he broke the sword. But Siegfried reforges the sword, slays the dragon, and sets off to win Brunhilde. On the way, he encounters Wotan, but he doesn't know who he is. This is almost like that Oedipus story, you know, where Oedipus meets his father. But anyway, we'll come back to Greek literature again later. He uses the sword that he was reforged to break the spear, and one wonders whether the analogous event could happen within the EU. I don't know, but let's return to the Ring and see what actually happens after this. You see, Wotan concedes that his power is at an end and that Siegfried will rule in his place. But that's not what happens. Forces beyond Wotan's control and beyond Siegfried's control come into play. Siegfried has given the ring to Brunhilde as a wedding gift. And while he's away, one of her sisters comes to her to beg her to return it to the river Rhine so that their father, Wotan, can live in peace in Valhalla. She refuses. In the meantime, Siegfried has been cleverly deceived by a man called Hagen, who is the son of Alberich. And with his memory partly blocked, he takes the ring by force from Brunhilde. Everyone ends up near the river Rhine in the land of the Gibichungs. And Brunhilde, who's been deceived and cheated, is in total confusion, and she reveals to Hagen how Siegfried can be killed. The men set out on a hunt. Siegfried, during the hunt, encounters the Rhine maidens, who ask him for the ring back. But like Brunhilde, he refuses to give it up. Almost immediately afterwards, Hagen kills him. And we hear one of the greatest pieces of orchestral music written by Wagner, the Siegfried Funeral March. This seems like the end, and it is, almost, but not quite. When Siegfried is finally brought home and Hagen decides to claim the ring, Brunhilde's eyes are suddenly opened. She takes control, commands a funeral pyre for Siegfried, and rides her horse onto its flames. In a moment of cataclysmic purification, the river Rhine overflows its banks. The Rhine maidens take back the ring, and Hagen is swept away. In Wagner's vision, a new world has dawned. But what about the real world in the Euro crisis? What will happen, and is the ring any guide? For me, it stands as a huge warning. Alberich can be thought to represent a force of nature, rather like the bond markets. And the great lesson of the ring is that we cannot control the forces of nature. The ring, like the euro, was an unnatural creation that at first gave Wotan something for nothing. But it caused huge discord. Requests to disown it were cast aside, and the eventual conflagration devoured the palace of Valhalla. Could this happen with the euro and the EU? Certainly the poetry and music of Wagner's Ring should stand as a warning. Indeed, poetry and the arts embody the hopes and fears of human beings, and we should really heed the messages they convey. Now, I mentioned earlier that Wagner's work had recreated in a modern form the essence of Greek drama, and I want to use a Greek word to describe the essence of the problem with the euro. Greece, of course, has been in the eye of the storm in the Eurozone crisis, but it's an ancient word that I want, and it appears in Homer's Odyssey. Penelope's suitors are swept away by Odysseus after he returns from the Trojan War, and Homer tells us that they are guilty of hubris. That's the word he uses, and I've known classical scholars claim that the difference between hubris and arrogance is that arrogance is immediately visible. Hubris only later, when the consequences become all too clear. So the euro was a strange creation whose consequences have yet to be fully realized. But what Wagner's Ring teaches us is that to believe we can control the forces of nature, of human instinct, is folly on a grand scale. One might almost say on a Wagnerian scale. This comparison between the two is something I wrote an essay on. It appeared a year ago in the magazine History Today. And I'm a great Wagner fan myself, and I go every year to the Wagner Festival in Bayreuth in Germany, a place where Wagner founded his own opera house. I took the essay with me, and one always hopes that the politicians are aware of art and literature and music, and I gave a copy of this to Angela Merkel. There we are. Thanks very much.